Reimer's interpretation of the moral of the play?
Anybody remember what Thomas Reimer's famously racist interpretation of the moral of the play is? Bless you.
Wasn't it like women should basically just keep their mouths shut and hold on to their handkerchiefs because?
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment, but and I think that's part of it. But he had a bigger, more racist interpretation of the moral of the story. It was a racist interpretation of the moral of the story.
It wasn't the you shouldn't cross mix the races.
Yeah.
Bad things will happen.
No, was it what's the word? Miscegenation? Is that it?
Miscegenation.
Yeah. So keep your white daughters away from those black folks, or something like that. We're going to be talking all about that today. I hope that we're talking about that in porn, so it should be a really awkward conversation. Yeah.
Othello's two selves. Who kills who? Like, there's the Turk and the Venetian, but
Yeah.
It's the Turk kills the Venetian because isn't like the Turk his private self and then the Venetian is his public self, technically.
I think that works. I think that you could.
It's actually the opposite because like he sees himself as a public enemy, just like the Turks were a public enemy, so he kills himself.
Yeah, I actually think you could make the argument work either way. I tend more in that direction, but on the other hand, with like a Venetian, because the Venetian's supposed to be the Christian, and Christians don't kill themselves, but Turks do. Well, I mean, not really, but in Shakespeare's world, they do.
So which one is
Because they didn't really, there wasn't a deep, rich understanding of the Muslim faith going on in England at the time. Okay, anything else? Yes, sir.
What happens to the apparent stereotyping of characters in Othello?
Anyone?
like set it up to knock it down.
Yeah, undermined and challenged. Even as it turns out, as we'll see in today's conversation, even stereotypical porn scenarios are lampooned. Yes, ma'am.
For there was an Act 1 scene was the stranger at Brabantio's house. Who was the stranger at his house?
He's the strange stranger. It was the passage about how Othello's even a stranger stranger. He's just so strange that it's.
So Othello's the stranger stranger?
Huh?
Othello's the stranger stranger?
Yeah, Othello's a stranger stranger. Yeah.
What is the omnipresent pun on die that is always operative in Shakespeare's love tragedy?
All right, everyone should listen to this. This is important. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. What is the omnipresent pun on die that is always operative in Shakespeare's love tragedies?
Anyone? The pun on die, always operative in Shakespeare's love tragedies and Renaissance literature in general. To die is to...
What I got from it was like that they always end up dying like together on their wedding bed. Their wedding sheets.
That happens in Othello, but the omnipresent to die,
To die is to have sex.
Yeah, well, not just that.
Or
But
it's the,
yeah.
because
the
there's
petite mort.
the struggle, the release.
They call it the little
silence.
death. It's the, yeah. Yeah.
What is an ancient?
What is an ancient? Anyone? Yeah.
I looked it up and it's like second in command to the lieutenant who like bears the flag.
Right. Yeah.
What is double time?
That's a huge question. It's not on the quiz. We'll get into that later. All right. All right, pass them up. How is Desdemona's death like a marriage consummation?
Yeah.
What? How's Desdemona's death like a marriage consummation?
It follows like the same format or like structure as an orgasm.
That works. Other ones will work too. What approximate age does Conic Man give to Desdemona?
Either C.
Yeah, that's important. Two possible motives of Iago's malice. Okay, sweet. What character is continually assisted by blind chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we know thinks himself is not? Yeah. What was Brabantio's dream?
Desdemona and death of Othello. Desdemona and death of Othello.
Yeah, that's a weird thing for him to be dreaming about. That's one thing that you'll see. Shakespeare in his later plays has these great dads that like. I think it's Perseus that this really creepy dad wants to marry his daughter off to this guy, and he's like, no, and he's like, give it to her real good. I'm gonna be in the next room. And you're just like,
Oh dear.
okay. If Garber suggests marital and martial powers are linked, what is the significance that we never see Othello in a fight? Oh, technically. Yeah.
He doesn't understand the relationship between love play and sword play, so that kind of like leads to his downfall.
Maybe. Or you could say the complete opposite and say he overestimates it and he can't use his sword once he's married. Okay. What wooed Desdemona?
Othello's stories.
Yeah, stories. What does to die also mean in Shakespeare's love tragedies? This is how I know he's just completely not paying attention during a review. Or they've got a really good porn censor. Okay, well, I won't even say it, because I know we're a meek bunch, me especially. Who never really does anything but moves people to do things, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Why does Honigman think it's wrong to costume Othello in a turban?
Because he's Christian, and that's a sign of black Muslim faith.
Good. I also will accept because it would be lame. So we all, whether or not, who's all seen or read Othello before? Okay, roughly half. Who doesn't know what Othello's about? Cool. So there's this interracial thing, and so it's been a real popular play. I would say this and the Merchant of Venice are the two big sort of probably this is a verifiable thing, and I should verify it before I say things like this. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they're the most written on plays since the 70s. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So it's because like we're the business is really into that sort of thing, but we won't really we'll get to that when we get to Greenblatt. But I've always found it interesting that the play is all about knowledge and deception, but it's often treated like it's all about sex, and you saw it in probably some of the readings. It's the sex topic comes up a lot, and that's interesting because there's at least an even chance that nobody has sex in the play. But I want you, when you read it, I want you to look for when sex could have happened, and I want counter arguments, because this is a claim that I'm trying to I want to be challenged on that. But critics aren't the only ones who try to make it about sex, because you'll see Brabantio and Cassio and Rodrigo, Brabantio's Desdemona's dad. They always try to make it about sex because they're really fascinated with the idea of as Iago puts it, the black ram capping the white U in a memorable image. But they're really obsessed with this, and then at the same time, Othello's really obsessed with sex with his wife, but not him having sex with his wife, but Cassio. And the key that you have to remember about sex in Othello is all the sex in Othello takes place in people's minds, and it's always about other people having sex. Everyone else seems to be having unimaginably great sex with Desdemona, but it's entirely possible that Desdemona dies a virgin. Weird. So this is it's an interesting play. So the interracial sex is often what's focused on in the productions and discussions of the play. And so why do you think that is? Well, it's not as big a deal as it used to be.
Well, it seems like this play was read once when the other was something to be afraid of, and then read again shortly after it was written, and this new sort of fascination with exoticism. So there's two disparaging viewpoints, I think.
Good, yeah, and so you're tempted to think, especially in American, 18th, 19th, 20th century. There's a lot of apocryphal stories of Southern gentlemen getting up during the play when Othello kisses Desdemona and standing up for Desdemona's honor and stuff. I don't know if that stuff's true or not, but so it plays on cultural anxieties that were present then, and this two thing, and it turns out that what a lot of people kind of assume is a 20th century tension between fetishizing the exotic and being afraid of the exotic turns out to have been kind of a constant thing. We got to get to the porn quick before I lose your interest. So it's and it's kind of a racy topic, racy. So a lot of white people can be really weird about their ideas of the sexuality of black people, black men in particular. Has anyone noticed this? So there's a cultural idea. I don't know if it's true. I didn't exhaustively research it, I have to admit, but I poked around for a little bit, and I could not find any studies done about what? What am I going to say? I'll get in less trouble if I don't say it, if one of you say it. About
a black man have more sexual drive than white men.
all right, more sexual drive, but I'm looking for a. So I don't know if it's true or not. I from what I know about other tendencies that are grouped by ethnicity and DNA, because say two black guys, they've got more genetic difference between them than all the white people averaged and all the black people averaged do between each other. So there's not really that much genetic variation between. I do know that gay men have on average, because they have done this study, have on average a 1 inch larger than straight men. I don't know who did this study or why, but it's good to know.
Good to know.
So we've got those stereotypes in play. And this supposed virility of the black man has caused, in the U.S. in particular, a lot of cultural anxiety. The Ku Klux Klan justified its activities by claiming to be protecting the white women from the ungovernable carnality of black men. Anyone seen D.W. Griffith's great but very famous film, Birth of a Nation? Yeah, it's a classic. It's a great film, but so it's just about it glorifies the Ku Klux Klan when they're going off and yeah. But I mean, it's an important film. I usually like watching when I teach film. I do True Heart Susie instead of the other DW film. Anyway, digressions. I don't have time for that today. And I've even personally witnessed some liberal white fathers freak out when their daughters date black men. Does that still happen? Because I don't know. I feel like maybe we've come a long ways in the 50 years since I was a kid. But I imagine it still probably happens. So putting aside the question of whether black men really are better lovers. Yeah.
My roommate's really into documentaries, and she just saw a documentary at a school in Mississippi. Yeah, Mississippi or Alabama, one of those. Just had their first desegregated prom 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So they were.
Okay. That's good to know the conversation's not dated at any rate. a lot of good rappers coming out of Mississippi and Alabama lately. So we'll put aside the question of whether black men really are better lovers, because we know for sure that widespread cultural beliefs and practices need not have anything to do with objective reality. But it's easy to imagine how the perception could cause, specifically male anxiety, right? Can we see how white guys could be nervous about that, about their women? But so male sexual anxiety is a fun thing, right? So yeah. Series of studies replicated in cultures around the world have found an underlying sexual, not gender, difference in men and women. And when I say sex, I mean the biological determination of the female sex has a larger sex cells than the male sex in the same species. So, so if you wanna culturally determine that one for me, go ahead. Sorry, it's an argument I had a couple days ago with one of my colleagues. Right, of course, there are exceptions to the findings that I'm going to say, but the statistical results are rather robust and seem to indicate definite tendencies. So, they studied the arousal of jealousy by having subjects imagine different scenarios and measuring both subjective response and involuntary physiological reactions like galvanic skin response, heart rate, pupil dilation, etc. So you can like measure like what people's physical responses are, even if they say that they're cool about it. So, and the difference that they wanted was they had the subjects imagine emotional infidelity and sexual infidelity with their partner, and then they measured the response. So guess what? I think we talked a little bit about this. So women, do you think they're more upset by picturing their partner in an emotional affair or a physical affair?
Emotional.
Yeah. Did anybody say physical? This is why nobody cares about the findings of evolutionary psychology, because everybody already knows it already. And men?
Physical.
Yeah. Yeah. Shocker. But it's important that you have empirical evidence for these things, because you don't want to ground your discussion on just common knowledge that everybody knows, because everybody also knows a lot of stuff that's wrong, right? But so anyway, since we're playing at evolutionary psychology today, and we need to find a plausible. This will tie into Othello. Trust me. We have to have a plausible evolutionary reason for this. Anybody want to just pull something out and throw it at the wall and see if it sticks? Yes.
Because of, wasn't it paternity uncertainty?
Paternity uncertainty. Excellent. So yeah. So in case you don't know what an evolutionary explanation is, this means we have to explain a given human behavior is an evolved adaptation that gives the human who has the behavior a reproductive advantage over a human that does not. Everybody remember that perfectly? Does that make sense? I know only 17% of you believe in Darwin. That's okay. We have to study the Bible too. Evolution of human sexuality. One. So human sexuality turns out to be kind of weird amongst primates. Can anyone guess what that weirdness is? What do you think that's different between humans and other, and what's exclusive to humans so far as our sexuality is concerned?
Monogamy.
Close. That's half of it. And it's not really monogamy because it's we're actually one of the very few societies in the history of mankind that has striated or hierarchical social arrangements that still enforces monogamous pair bonds. Usually you have harems. But that's part of it.
We can choose how many offspring we have.
Okay, 3 things.
Is it that we have pleasure when other animals just do it?
Okay,
Kids?
so we're getting there. So what we have is we're pair bonding primates, and we have recreational sex. Do any other animals have recreational sex?
Dolphins.
Dolphins and bonobos.
We're receptive year round.
Yeah, and we're receptive. That's not an exclusive thing. But the weird thing about humans specifically as primates is the combination of pair bonding behavior. It's monogamous behavior in females, and recreational sex. So how would this happen? Because everybody knows, right? This is the first thing that people say. Oh yeah, well, if humans are so Darwinian, how can we have recreational sex? I wonder. Anyone? All right, I'll tell you. The problem is that human babies are born prematurely. This is the problem with humans. Why are we born prematurely?
Because the womb can't support the brain growing bigger.
Yeah.
It's not big enough for the
So they say that, and the estimates vary, but they say that the equivalent development of a human baby and to be born as a chimpanzee baby along the same lines would be a 1.5-year-old baby. Anybody want to give birth to a 1.5-year-old baby? Yeah. Wow. So yeah, we've got these disproportionately large heads. And that plus the social learning necessary for being humans means that it takes much, much longer that we need extensive parental care than with other animals, right? We got these stupid, like a gazelle, you plop out the gazelle, the thing's running in 5 minutes, so then you just have to just sort of, all right, this is how you eat grass and this is how you run. It's a simple thing. So, our ancestors that learned to pair bond, and that's the biologist term for monogamous behavior, had an advantage over the single mom ancestors since it was really, really hard to be a single mom on the savannah. And so you think about it, right? So it's really hard to be a single mom now, but there's no supermarkets, there's saber-toothed tigers, there's so like having a community helps a little bit, and this is one of the reasons why cultures are invented. But like to have another guy, to have somebody around to go out and hunt and like scare off the orangutans at night helped a lot. No minivans. How do they take their kids to soccer practice? Mind-boggling. So females that were able to retain males and get them to bring home some mastodon bacon and help fight off the hyenas had a distinct advantage. Problem. High paternal investment is the exception in primates. Like male chimpanzees, for instance, do not recognize their children. They don't care. They're just completely indifferent to it. And it doesn't matter to them at all. So the extent of their investment is simply the sperm and the effort used to impregnate the female. And it's also a political tool. Chimps are really fat anyway. But they like to, if they want to make friends, like they'll grant access to their buddy to 25% of the females. It's really weird. I used to think that there were no pimps in the animal world, but everything you think is not in the animal world, you look and then there it is. It's weird. And female chimps advertise, so we're getting to this thing when they are fertile, with visual and olfactory cues. So males don't waste their time, effort, and sperm on non-ovulating females. So chimps, not bonobos, which are, you and I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a chimp and bonobo. Bonobos are just crazy, just, like big gay sex orgies and everything. But they have recreational sex like there's no tomorrow. And but chimps are good Puritans. So sex is for reproductive purposes only. They only do it in the position that God intended, etc. And baby chimps grow up fast and are relatively easy to care for, so they don't require a daddy chimp to help out, and their social structure is really built to help out with that. So from a male primate perspective, this is ideal, because then he can immediately divert his time and resources to procuring another female to mate with, spreading his genes even further. This makes sense, right? Like if you're a male chimp, this is the way to go. So, but for humans to be humans, females must find a way to corral this tendency. And they did, of course, because this is the way that it is. But, unfortunately, it was with deception. This is how things get done in nature. You lie. So, anyone know or want to guess what the deception that females do to male humans? It's physiological. Concealed ovulation. You don't advertise. So what does this mean? Because we can't smell it, your butts don't turn bright red. which would change things a lot. Although probably not the short styles that people have been wearing the last couple of days. Why is the butt cheek line? I don't want to see this on campus. I'm going to do one of those petition things or something. But human males have no conscious way of knowing when a female is fertile, although both males and females unconsciously respond to the presence of ovulating females, because ovulating females apparently appear more symmetrical. They have a glow. And I mentioned this before, that ovulating strippers make 3 times more than non-ovulating strippers and 4 times more than strippers that are on the pill. but nobody can tell. They just can tell. So like, so if you're ovulating and your friends get cattier to you, this is how females respond to ovulating females. And males just, if you find yourself into some chick that you're not usually into all of a sudden, you don't know why, and it goes away after a couple of days, that's what happened. So the chimp male strategy is no good. Male humans that hung around and repeatedly inseminated females had a better statistical chance of successful reproduction. So this is where recreational sex comes in, because if you don't want to keep having sex, even though you don't know if the person's, because in this way, like all human sex, even if you're a Puritan, all human sex is essentially recreational, and that makes sense, right? So like I've got to keep trying. I can't just one shot and go look for somebody else and know that I'm going to spread my proverbial seed effectively. I've got to keep trying, and even worse, that I've also got to keep an eye on the female to make sure that that I'm the one that did it, right? Because I've just got this like this general space of time, and I don't know when, and I don't want to waste my time. So not only do I have to stay around and have recreational sex, I also have to make sure that you're not having sex with anyone else. So this is the birth and the evolutionary advantage of human male jealousy, because males that had this tendency were more successful at reproducing, because they kept the other males away more effectively. The guys that didn't do this are not our ancestors, right? Or is that our ascendants, antecedents? I always get this confused. They're ancestors, right? Yeah. Okay. So the problem is that a big component of the kind of love associated with pair bonding in humans may have its origins in this kind of jealousy. Baby, baby, be mine. So we have the explanation for the apparent paradox of human sexuality. All of our sex is recreational, at least as far as we know. And we're not counting, like you can take your temperature and tests and hormone stuff now, but we won't count that. That's been a modern medical thing. It's not in the evolutionary environment. And we're also reasonably monogamous. So we're happily ever after, right? Has anyone ever had a failed relationship? So there's still this underlying conflict of interest, as everybody knows, and an act of deceit, the concealed ovulation, is not the best foundation for a relationship, right? You can't have a relationship built on lies, because it's just lies on lies and keeps tumbling down or something. But all human relationships are built on lies then, right? Because you got this concealed ovulation thing. Eve. Worst of all, cheating can have substantial rewards, right? Because evolution does reward a certain amount of infidelity, and we should expect it now and then. And we've talked about this, right? So a male who has a chance to upgrade to a genetically superior female will give his genes the best chance, right? So this is why males have evolved the taste for novelty or whatever, I guess it makes sense, right? The same's true for females, but the stakes of abandonment are higher for a pregnant or offspring burdened female than it is for a male, right? So what doesn't happen in chimpanzee communities is the male gets stuck with 2 babies and the female goes off, right? And it doesn't happen that often in human. It happens. It seems like I know. And anytime I say this, I think I actually know more guys that are abandoned with children than women. Anybody have any data? I don't know. Who cares? Empirical facts. So emotional infidelity, a reliable cue of possible abandonment, is a bigger threat to females because you don't want to get abandoned on the savannah with the saber-toothed tigers, right? And why? Well, male humans, as studies have suggested, this is a shock to me, are perfectly capable of mating with other people that they have neither the desire nor intention of ever seeing again. So it makes sense that women would be more scared of emotional infidelity than physical infidelity because, as everybody knows. And this is consistent with the inner primate sex strategy. And so you know, even if you know, like if I'm let's not just use somebody else. If Blake's married, if he just got married last weekend, for instance, and he goes off on a little liaison and gets Betsy Ross pregnant in Iowa, but comes back to his wife because he doesn't want to see Betsy Ross again, then he spread his gene, and you know, like even if 1 out of 100 of these little liaisons, so he still gets an advantage, right? But that's not really a threat, you know. Like his wife probably be mad, probably will get over it if it's statistically consistent, right? Or no? No. Everybody says that. Although I'm the biggest girl ever, I'm like, you still love me, right? So in the absence of paternity suits, this is not a real threat to the pair bonded female. But males know this about other males too. So they need to be really worried about mere sexual infidelity, right? Because women can have an advantage by cheating too, right? So we talked about this. So you land yourself a dupe, a good, you know, somebody who can't do better, with a good job, nice guy, right? And then you know, like the really hot Justin Bieber guy. With his chiseled masculine looks. I can't think of an attractive manly man. Will someone help me out? This is like the third time.
Ryan Gosling.
Who?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling? Okay, so Ryan Gosling has the masculinity cues apparently, and so if women, if you find yourself mysteriously attracted to some guy at a certain time of month, that you're like, oh, he's a total jerk, but you know what, today, you're probably ovulating, so go to it and get those superior genes. But you know, men are worried about this, right? Because we don't really want to be the chump. Because and this is actually a bigger threat for us than abandonment. Because the big problem for us would be to invest our time and resources raising Brian Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. But close.
His kid. And it's just like, man, really got a good looking kid for being such a chump. I must be better looking than I thought. So the biggest chumps, you know, are not our ancestors. But what might be even worse is the cultural stigma of being thought a cuckold. This is one of those unfortunate cultural universals, except possibly in places in Scandinavia in the late 20th, early 21st century, where there doesn't seem to be a stigma. But in many cultures, a cuckold is pretty much the worst thing to be. And so an unknowing cuckold, like if I don't know if Mary has a little Gosling from Gosling, and I don't know about it, you know, like I could still potentially, you know, propagate my seeds along with the little Gosling, and I still have a, you know, an okay chance in the reproductive world. Although obviously I'm not going to be the, you know, I'm not going to have the hot brother of the two, or whatever. But a known cuckold might not be able to overcome the social stigma. Like, I don't know, I've noticed that like people that are recently publicly humiliated or beat up or you know, like they don't really do well with the chicks for some reason. And we won't go into that. But so we get back to Othello for a moment. And you'll see this is all about Othello. So the interracial thing makes it unlikely that a white man with a white wife would mistake his children with a black man's or vice versa. So that can't really account for the black-white anxiety thing, right? Because so it can't just be that, right? You see what I'm saying? Perfectly clear. Although, what's that Jim Carrey movie? That's hilarious with that. And he's raising those giant black kids that he thinks are his.
Myself and I.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't really that good of a movie, was it?
I kinda liked it.
Was it? It's been a long time.
It was crazy, it was good.
Anywho, but typically speaking, well, and that was the joke of the movie, right? Everybody else is like, ha ha, he's a cuckold. You know this thing that people do in pictures? You know what that's from? It's from this. What does that mean? Cuckold. So when you do that to your sister in a picture, it's like, haha, your wife has sex with other guys. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
How did it evolve from that to that?
I thought it was just bunny ears.
That's what
That's what they want us to think.
I don't know. There needs to be work done in the field. I'm sure that there's probably books done on it, but I'm yeah, I mean that'd be an interesting thing. How did cuckold worms become bunny ears? I'd buy it. Evolution of bunny ears. But so if you're not have to worry about mistaking the offspring for your own, then the problem has to be more about the social stigma, right? That everybody will know that your wife is having an affair with apparently a super virile person, right? Which does that make it worse or better? I don't know. Is it worse to get left for somebody super hot or for somebody not?
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
Let's go for hots. Worse to get left for somebody super hot.
No, I'm gonna agree with that.
Yeah, it would be worse.
Worse to get left for an uggo.
That would be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worse to get left for an uggo. I mean, it's like, hey man, it's Ryan Gosling.
If they're ugly, you're like, wow, they must really love them. But okay, I'm better.
Yeah.
You still got your pride because you're like, I'm better than that ugly.
Yeah. I've somehow managed, all the times I've been dumped, I've somehow managed to convince myself that I was too good for them. that battery of cognitive biases. It's a gift. So, which brings us to the odd challenge to evolutionary psychologists everywhere that we've been wrestling with for almost a year and a half. The question of the fourth most popular genre of internet pornography in the United States, cuckold porn. So this will be, I know this was novel news to me and will be novel news to all of you. But these two characters, they're neuroscientists and really sort of mathematicians. Sai Gautam and Oji Ogus, and I'm saying their names wrong, thank God they're not in my class, have done an extensive study of the pornography viewing habits of internet users. It's called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. It's not as good of a book as I was hoping. They try to be all conversational, but it's like, I mean, to me it's much funnier to write a giant book on pornography if you're really scientific and you never, and I think that's funnier. I think they really dropped the ball on that. But, so in cuckold porn, there is a meek married man that's forced to watch a virile muscular man copulate with his wife. That's the scenario in cuckold porn. So why is this something that guys would want to watch with everything we've just learned about evolutionary psychology? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Yes, sir.
Maybe they want to picture themselves as the guy that's not the cuckold.
Right. So so this is the answer is to say the viewer identifies with the triumphant virile male and gets to enjoy both the body of a woman, who incidentally he'll not have to see again or invest any time and resources in, and the humiliation of a potential rival. That makes sense, right? There's a problem. I mean, I'm sure this is part of the appeal, but it's not all. Because it turns out that the privileged perspective is that of the meek man. That's where the camera angles, because in porn conventions, you use camera angles to put you from, this is the position that you're experiencing this from. And then in the literotica that accompanies the cuckold fascination sites is always from the perspective of the guy getting cuckolded. So it's a fantasy of, it's primarily, not exclusively, primarily a fantasy of getting cheated on. And this has been confirmed not only by the people who make it and the fans of it, but they, not me. There's people in my house that check my browsing history, so I couldn't do any research on this. But apparently the user comments confirm this too. And then of course it gets even weirder when you factor in the race thing. So, in surveying the literotica on cuckold porn, Cyan Gotham ran an analysis of the top word phrases in cuckold stories. You ready for this? Black beeps. Black beeps. Black man. Another man. Your husband. Big black. Other men. My wife. Her lover. I just want that to sink in. So the fantasy does not seem to be about unknowingly raising someone else's kids. The field has not, for some reason, drawn a lot of grant money. It has not received the scholarly attention I'm sure we all agree it deserves. I'm blushing, I can tell. I'm really, I'm so uncomfortable right now. This should be a degree commercial or something. It seemed like a good idea at the time. But one suspects the whole black man fetish thing is less because of some biological fact regarding people of African descent, and more because the viewers are primarily not black, and the black man is therefore an exotic, unknown, mysterious, other, as they say in the business. This at least seems to be what Shakespeare thinks. And since he's always right, I think we should listen. So in Othello, he effectively satirizes 21st century porn stereotypes. How? Well, we have Iago, Brabantio, Rodrigo, and Cassio, as I mentioned, spend a lot of time fantasizing about Othello having sex with Desdemona, who they all have different erotic investments in, Brabantio being only the most disturbing of them. So there's also there's also this father-daughter incest threat that looms over Shakespeare's later plays that actually happens in, I think, the same play. Yeah, Pericles, the same play that I was telling you about when the guy gets married and the dad's all like trying to listen at the door about with his daughter. Anywho, that was a digression. Oh good, we're going to have plenty of time. Because when you get nervous, you talk fast. And but Othello, who incidentally may be impotent, has an exact same response to Cassio, who is his own mysterious exotic other. Like what somebody needs to do is like find out the kind of cuckold porn that big virile black men like to watch. But this is where we need the grant money. They don't, because the data set that they had was most of it was from, remember when everybody got really pissed at America Online for selling everyone's user data? You guys remember that? That was the big thing. That was the big data set. So all they have are people's AOL names. And then so they tried to determine, they did a pretty good job with gender. They couldn't do a real good job with race from search histories, as it turns out. It doesn't seem to be ethnically biased. So because you'd be, I mean, that's sort of key to this argument, right? Because if black men enjoy watching cuckold porn with the same the same. I'm digressing. So anyway, but Othello, you know, Cassio is his hypervirile, you know, other that he fantasizes about. So, but we got to get back to the question. Rail or in? Why are guys into this? So it can't be, are we just stupid? Is it, but that would give us a biological disadvantage, reproductive disadvantage, right? I mean, right? Like a predilection to, you know, like watching, you know, like our wife have sex with somebody. It's not, right? Anybody got anything? Do we have to throw out evolutionary psychology as a model?
About the only thing I can think of is that it's part of that novelty thing. So that if you watch your wife having intercourse with another man, you have an excuse to go out and do your own thing, you know, or a reason to divorce, perhaps. I don't know. It's twisted, but that's all I can think of.
That is an awesome attempt. It's way better than I did, incidentally.
Well, do you ever read Savage Love in the Season Weekly? You know what I'm
Should
talking
I?
about? Well, sometimes I just think it's really interesting. Like
Okay.
people just ask like sex and relationship questions. And there was this one time where this guy like left his girlfriend because she cheated on him.
Mhm.
But then when he was with his new girlfriend, he discovered that like imagining her with another guy turned him on. So like I'm just thinking like the imagining part. I don't know about seeing it. But
So just the fantasy is fantasy, like the same thing we were talking about earlier with rape fantasy. How nobody really wants to get raped, but there's something about rape fantasy that's arousing. Sort of like that. So it's kind of the equivalent of a rape fantasy.
He was like, yeah, with my girlfriend, I told her to cheat on me, and I cheated on her, and then he was like pretty much screwed over. And
Yeah.
then he was like asking
Yeah. So
for advice.
you don't. Yeah. So the advice, of course, is to not do that. So there is a. So which brings up an interesting thing because there's an undeniable sort of homoerotic string going through Othello. You know, like I'm not somebody that overhypes these things, but sort of the pure cuckold porn thing, like this is from Cyan Gotham. The you know, like the really hardcore one ends with after the guy's done with the wife, then the meek little man gets has to perform on the cuckolder. It's just an extra little bit of another little twist. So I don't really want to go there because I'm already uncomfortable enough. But yeah, so the fantasizing about so let's think about this because the jealousy thing we tied back. Remember our evolutionary psychology thing. So the jealousy thing is like part of a constituent point of human love, right? It's anybody buy that? The only reason I do is because I'm pathologically incapable of being jealous because for some reason I think that I'm the greatest thing ever and what could I possibly have to be jealous of? This really upsets, this has in the past really upset people that I've been dating because they think that I don't love them because I don't get jealous. Has anyone experienced anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so well, I mean, there's a couple murmurs. But anyway, so we have to anchor all human behavior in a trait that has evolved to give maximal reproduction advantage. And this is common enough to not just be an aberration, or you know, like this isn't just a pervert. I mean, if everybody that was into cuckold porn didn't reproduce, you know, then we would be a lot fewer of us. So, how does fantasizing about a big, muscular, anatomically gifted individual of another race having sexual intercourse with your wife bestow a reproductive advantage to the person with this trait? I'm going with the stimulates jealousy, but how would this work? It's a psychological manifestation of what biologists call sperm competition. So the way that you can tell the amount of promiscuity that apes and monkeys have is the size of their testicles. So in highly promiscuous species such as chimps, they're huge, right? Because the sperm competition is really a sperm competition. Because the female's having sex with everybody that's allowed to. So you're looking at like 4 or 5 different chimps. You know, anytime she's fertile, and that's you know like in well-run chimp colonies. You know, if you've got a weak alpha, you know that could be more. So so really, it's the person that can produce the most has a distinct advantage, right? And about, this is like the 4th time this semester I've talked about chimp testicles. So, dogs, deer, and kangaroos display behavioral adaptations. They have shorter, faster, more frequent, and more intense sex with a partner they suspect of having had visitors recently. See where this is going? It's not good. So what this means is that sperm competition cues are sexually arousing at an unconscious level. So, so the idea, so in other animals, you know, it's a stimulant, right? Because they've got to overperform their usual performance in order to compete with the competition, right? So maybe some of you have seen this strategy employed in Friends of Friends. But I've sometimes when people are in failing relationships, for some reason girls try this more than guys. Girls will try to go out and either actually sleep with somebody or at least flirt with people at a bar to try and arouse the interest in the person that they're losing. Does anyone have a friend of a friend that's ever done this? Now this is a horrible strategy, right? I mean, they've done studies on it. It works like 1 out of 10 times, but 1 out of 10 times it does work. But don't do it. It's not nice. Because usually it comes off as desperate, right? Yeah.
So are you just saying that it's motivation?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's competition. It's like, yeah, all right, so the more virile the person that the competition is, it just stimulates something in your brain. It's like an aphrodisiac, right?
Yeah.
So does this make sense to everybody? Okay, good, because I don't want to slow down. And then, so, you know, sexual jealousy is biologically a sexual stimulant. And you'll also notice that if you think about it and map this onto our mimetic desire thing, it works with it, right? So here we go. This is great. But what could be a problem with self-stimulating with jealousy cues? Jealousy is great, right? Anybody ever been jealous? It looks fun. Nothing could possibly go wrong with this, right? Well, jealousy ruins relationships, right? It's really hard to be in a relationship when there's too much jealousy. And then there's a fine line, as it turns out, with the neurocircuitry between arousal and rage, which makes sense, right? So, being highly sexually aroused combined with the male competition of this scenario, you could see how the lines just get a little bit crossed, and next thing you know, you're beating your wife, or O.J. Simpson, you're what was her name? Nicole Brown? Yeah. Anybody think O.J. was innocent? Anywho. Yeah, so highlighting male competition may have potentially catastrophic effects, as we will see in Othello. I want you to pay attention to how Iago, we're kind of going to go slow through the play, but I want you, as you're going through, look at the specific strategies that Iago uses to inflame Othello's jealousy. It sounds a lot like porn. In fact, it is. He conjures up these sexual situations. Imagine Desdemona and Othello's like, "Oh, go to monkeys, go to monkeys," and he really says that. Not during one of the porn scenes, unfortunately, but go to monkeys. And I just stopped saying "go to monkeys" all the time, and I'm going to again. Go back to Othello. So, yeah. I was worried that was going to be too long, but I got nervous and sped through it. So that's fabulous, because we've got to pass the exams back. Any questions about any of this? Really, because we're not going to do it again. Okay.